So I believe it is now working. So I guess I'll start it from here. So,
Okay.
all right. So starting the project now. Hello, my name is Tyler Kosick, and today I am interviewing Ashley Moretti. She is the curator of collections and exhibitions at the Erie Canal Museum. So, what is the Erie Canal Museum for somebody who does not particularly know what it is and what it represents, and where can it be found?
Okay. Well, the museum is located in downtown Syracuse, which of course is not on the current Erie Canal system, which is a little confusing to our visitors. They show up and they see that we're a maritime museum, and this is a maritime museum. This is the Erie Canal Museum. Where's the Erie Canal? And then we have to explain that the path of the canal has changed over the last 200 years.
Right, yeah.
Syracuse is one of the Syracuse is one of the cities that was created as a result of the canal. At the time when the canal came through the city in 1820, there were only 250 people living here. So the population of the area exploded as a result of the canal. So even though Syracuse is not on the current system, Syracuse is a significant part of Erie Canal history, and that's why it makes sense for the museum to be here.
Right, yeah. Because it's one of the most significant it's one of the areas that's been most significantly impacted by the construction of the canal itself.
Yes.
Okay, right. So, and is there a fee or what is the fee to attend?
We are technically a free museum. We have a suggested donation amount of $5 per person, which most people do treat as just a regular admission charge. Most people that come in, they pull out their wallet right off, and we explain, "Hey, we're free. If you'd like to make the suggested donation, you're welcome to." Most people do donate to us, which is really nice. But ostensibly, we're free, and we're also open 7 days a week under normal circumstances.
Yeah, right. When we're not going through this crazy time that we're going through right now.
When we're not in a global pandemic, we're open 7 days a week.
Right, all right. Yep, sounds good. Is there any particular profile to your visitors? Like who is your average visitor coming to visit the museum?
We get a lot of retired folks, a lot of people that are traveling across New York State and are looking for things to do in the cities that are kind of along the thruway. I imagine most people come off the thruway to visit us. We also get a lot of people that come to Syracuse for other reasons. A lot of people that are parents or grandparents of kids that go to SU.
Mhm.
So it's rare that people come to Syracuse specifically to come to our museum. But once they are in the city for other reasons, we do get a lot of visitation. I think we might still be the top rated attraction on TripAdvisor. If it's not us, it's the zoo. But we tend to, it's sort of like an ongoing competition. Like sometimes it's the zoo, sometimes it's us. It kind of, we trade off as to
There's a
which one's
healthy
the top.
rivalry.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know. Or like who's going to be the top rated attraction on TripAdvisor this week?
Yeah, within the city of Syracuse. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. So of course, the pandemic, of course, is impacting your normal operations, but there's also
Yeah.
another significant part of living in Syracuse that uh, I would think would also impact your operations: the ever-changing weather and how weather must affect normal business, or if weather affecting your business is just normal business.
Sometimes, yeah. We're only ever closed on purpose 5 days a year for five holidays. Christmas Day, Thanksgiving Day, New Year's Day, Fourth of July, and Easter Sunday. Those are the only 5 days that we plan to be closed. But we have closed for weather on occasion. I've been with the museum almost 4 years, and there's been a handful of times where we've had to close because it was just too dangerous for us to get in, let alone our visitors.
Too dangerous to like drive on the road per se to get to the
Yeah,
museum.
yeah,
Yeah.
yep.
All right. Do you have a busy season because of the weather by any chance, or just a busy season in general for other reasons?
Summer tends to be busy for us, but by a wide margin, the busiest chunk of time in our year is during our gingerbread gallery. That is an annual exhibit that we do every year that opens usually the week before Thanksgiving and closes the first week in January. So for those 6, 7 weeks, we get about 6,000 visitors, which
Oh,
when you
wow.
consider that
Okay.
we see about 23,000 a year. Again, under normal under normal circumstances, we've been closed for almost 2 months now. So that is the largest concentration. That is also the only. program, well, the only exhibit that we actually charge an admission fee for. So normally we are a free museum, but people that come during that time to see the gingerbread gallery, there is a fee associated with that.
All right. Do you want to go into more of like what the gingerbread gallery is about? Like, is it the biggest event you
Okay,
probably host
so
at the
so
museum?
this started. The first year for this was 1985. I think was the first year. Yes, we just had our 34th annual. Uh, Basically, people in the area make gingerbread creations, and they bring them to the museum, and we do an exhibit with them. We basically construct a wooden village with storefronts on our second floor in our big open gallery, and we display people's gingerbread creations, and other people come in and check them out, and it's a contest. So we have local community figures that serve as judges for us, and we have a couple of different entrance categories. We have senior category, we have a family category, youth category, and professional bakers. Which that actually, if you enter your creation in that category, you actually pay a fee to enter, and then there's a cash prize. The prizes for the other three categories are just a ribbon and glory, basically bragging rights.
Right. Yeah. Sounds like a very big event for the museum that brings in a lot of people
It
and a lot
is.
of
It is. And
attention.
I got to tell you, thank heavens that this COVID-19 thing didn't happen during this time. Although it'll be interesting to see how we're doing by the fall when it's time for us to do this again, because that's represents a huge chunk. That's like 25% of our funding for the year comes for that.
Right. Yeah. Which is pretty significant in the grand scheme
Yes,
of
it is.
yeah.
Yeah, and in the summer we get a lot of visitors, just regular visitors in the summer because people are traveling.
And the weather's much nicer, so you can travel
Oh
to the
yes,
museum
yes.
much easier.
Summer in Syracuse is a special time.
Yeah, it's very different from the other 90% of the year that is just terrible.
Yeah, really.
So, moving on to the next question. So, how many are on your staff? How many are employed at the museum?
Well, I'm answering these on the basis of things are normal.
Yeah,
We usually have about 10 employees. Right now, we have five full timers. There's myself. There's our executive director, director of communications and outreach, operations manager, and our educator. There's five of us, and then we also have a couple of part timers that work at our front desk, and then we also have a part time janitor and maintenance person.
And do you take volunteers to also help at the museum?
Yes, yes, we probably have somewhere in the neighborhood of about 50 volunteers.
Really? That's quite
Also.
a few.
Oh yeah, yeah. I have everyone on staff. All of our full timers. We each have like a little cadre of people that we work with on various things. We have people that come just to volunteer for the gingerbread gallery. They sit at the table and they sell admission tickets. So we see them just Christmas every year. And then we have other people that show up all the time. There's one guy that works with us. His name is Mike, and I call him he's sort of our MVP volunteer because he comes to all of our events and he'll help out with anything. So
Nice. So he's pretty close with the
yeah,
museum.
he's a good guy. Yep. Yep.
Gotcha. Now, what's like a profile of your volunteers? Like, who normally comes to volunteer? Who comes to help with all
Usually
sorts of different things?
older retirees. Older
hmm
retirees. We have a lot of people that worked like in the public sector and nonprofits, or they worked as teachers, and so they're bored. they they
Right.
travel, they visit the grandkids, and they want something to do locally, so they come and work with us.
hmm
I take a lot of college student and grad student interns as well. So I guess our volunteer profile would be like 65 plus and then under 25. That's kind of the two ranges
Gotcha.
of
It's a big
volunteer ages
striation
that we
between
get.
both.
Yeah.
Okay. So, what type of educational background should someone have to work at the museum? Or should they have any sort of educational background to volunteer at the museum?
I mean, for volunteers, and we'll take just about anybody. I mean, if you're interested in the museum, it's great to have somebody like the retired teachers. They make really great tour guides. They make great docents because they know how to kind of manage a crowd. They worked with kids especially. So if we have school tours, they're really good. They've already got the basic training for that. It's just
Right?
a matter of them learning about the canal and the museum. So. In terms of like our students that I would take as an intern, I take a lot of museum studies people from SU. I take people from Lemoyne as well. That usually are there in the arts administration program. So yeah, usually if you kind of are in like that arts and culture or museum studies, that's usually the interns that we get. I've taken people from other backgrounds. Summer before last, I had a kid. He was an undergrad, and he was double major poli-sci and TV and video production.
Okay.
So
Right.
he was just kind of looking to diversify and get some more interesting experience.
Right.
So
Now, what
yeah,
about if you're a full-time employee at the museum? What type of educational background would you look for there?
there's a little bit more in the way of requirement for that. I'll
Yeah.
use myself as I'll use myself as an example. I have a bachelor's in history and philosophy, and my master's is in applied history. And then I have over a decade now of experience working in museums, in history museums specifically. So, I mean, I've worked with artifacts. I've created exhibits. I've done public programming. It was all of that experience that led me to getting the position.
Right. Very nice. Uh, so moving on to the next question, when was the museum opened and by what agency or body?
The museum officially opened in 1962. Our building is from 1850, and it actually is a canal era building, 1850, mid 19th century canal through Syracuse. Basically, it served as a way station. This is the Syracuse Waylock building, and it was a way station on the enlarged canal. Basically, as canal boats would travel, they would have to pull off and get weighed and pay a toll, kind of like you see trucks now on the highway, way station ahead, trucks pull off, pay a toll. It was that kind of thing. And after toll collection stopped on the canal in 1882, the building was kept active. The canal ran through Syracuse until the 1920s. So the building became a dry dock. It was offices for the state engineer and surveyor's office. Eventually, the canal closed, and all of those offices were moved to the state office building that's behind the museum on Water Street. They were all set to tear the museum building down. I-81 was actually going to run right through the building, and some people found out about it. The Syracuse Junior League, which is like an organization of politically active women, they found out about this, and they were like, "You can't tear down this building." So they formed this coalition, and they got the building added to the National Register of Historic Places, and they lobbied the local government and the state to basically turn ownership of the building over to the county, with the express idea that it would become a museum telling the history of the Erie Canal. So all this happened as a result of the Junior League and their coalition, as well as the Onondaga Historical Association, which is like the County Historical Society. So all of them undertook this project, and they opened the museum in 1962, and it's been an independent entity ever since. The building is owned by the county, which means that if something goes wrong, something breaks, it's up to the county to fix it, which is kind of nice for us because we don't have to pay for it out of our budget, but also not so nice for us because sometimes the county's timeline is very different from what we would consider to be a reasonable timeline.
Right.
So yeah, we've had HVAC issues off and on for years, and it's always, oh yeah, it'll be fixed next week. Sure it will. Sure it will. Um,
Hopefully, yeah.
yeah, so that's kind of the history of it. I guess this is 58 years. Yeah, this is 58 years in October. It opened October 26th, 1962.
Okay. Well, let's see what the next question is. So who particularly maintains the museum? Like, who's in charge of museum maintenance and who, under their employ, what is their actions used to keep up maintenance?
Okay, all right. So we have, well, when we're open, we have a part-time janitor and maintenance person, and I mean, she does things like she does cleaning. She'll change light bulbs, that kind of thing. It's never like large-scale repairs. I help her with some of that stuff because the exhibits are sort of my purview. If something bigger needs to happen, like say the boiler is out, that falls under the county's jurisdiction. So the operations manager would get in touch with them, and the county guys, the steam plant guys, would come over and work on that.
Okay, sounds good. Uh, Currently within your museum, and this is a big talking point in my museum studies class about museums across the world because of the global pandemic.
Mm,
Are you developing an
yeah.
online profile to make yourself more available to the public?
Yes. Yes. We have been. We officially closed to the public as of March 17th. And ever since then, our full timers have been working from home. One of our part timers is also contributing to ongoing projects as well. Our Facebook page has exploded with all kinds of programming. We have sort of a weekly program schedule now. On Mondays, our educator releases an article for people to read. And then on Thursdays, he actually does like a coffee hour Facebook Live event to discuss that article, and people can chime in with questions and interact, and it's interesting. On Tuesdays we do an object of the week. That was me. I went through the collection and picked out interesting items and took photos and put together the information about those items. Wednesdays there's a video that's either me giving one of my talks, which I give talks at the museum quarterly. Well, now we've moved them online. It's me giving one of my talks, or it's a video of me talking about one of our exhibits that's online. And then on Fridays, where that kind of rotates, where we've been sort of piggybacking on some of the big hashtag trends on Twitter for other museums, like Museum at Home.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about maybe doing like cooking videos, because in our collection we have a canal era cookbook put together by a man that worked on a canal boat in the early 20th century. So we're sort of playing with Fridays. In addition, we've also had other programming. We've had sort of friends of the museum, or other educators, or sort of noted canal people give talks for us. For example, we have Carol Sheriff, who is a historian and writer. She wrote the book The Artificial River, which is about the history of the Erie Canal. She's kind of a big deal celebrity for us. She came to the museum a couple of years ago to do research, and I was sort of starstruck. She was very nice, but she's actually going to give a talk over Zoom for us. I think at the end of this month. I think it's the 30th. So that's a Saturday. So we've also done some Saturday programming too, like that. Like one of the exhibits that's up at the museum right now that was supposed to come down last month. The artist, she's actually in Toronto, but she did a program for us over Zoom as well on a Saturday, and that was extremely popular. We had about 40 people participate, which is good for us.
Mm-hmm. Well, it sounds like
So
you guys
yes,
have a lot of
in
online.
answer to your question, we've done all kinds of things
Yeah, it
online.
sounds like you have a lot of online opportunity for people to participate in the museum.
Yes.
So, do you think? I mean, I would assume that it's a preference that the museum opens back up as soon as possible. But do you think?
Well, as soon as we can safely. That's the thing. I mean, Governor Cuomo is doing this right, I think. So museums are part of his phase four. Arts and cultural institutions are his phase four. So I think it'll be a while before we can reopen to the public. We're talking about staff maybe going back to the museum starting next month, and then maybe us reopening to the public probably in July.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you think that any of these online practices that you've created over these past few months you will maintain once the museum opens back up? Because
Yes,
some of them have been a
we'd
success.
like to. Yeah, we'd like to. Our director has talked about that with our board, and it's a good idea, honestly, because this way, we can reach people all over the world. It's entirely possible that people participating in the programming we're doing now will never visit the museum, or maybe it'll be years before they have a chance to come to Syracuse and see the museum, but they can still participate in what we're doing now.
Mm-hmm.
So they can continue to do that in the future, even when we're open.
Perfect. Yeah. So, moving on to the next question.
Hmm.
Uh, when it's difficult to ask this in a time like now, but when it's in a time of normality, what are some of the exhibitions that you yourself manage? And what are the daily tasks to upkeep such exhibitions?
Okay. Well, I'm responsible for everything. The museum, most of the museum is permanent exhibit. Basically, it is things that have been put in, for the last couple of years, and sort of they stay the same. I have two different temporary galleries that I trade out every couple of months. In terms of the permanent exhibits, if something breaks, if something needs to be replaced, that falls on me. I try to walk around the place at least a couple times a week just to check up on things, make sure that this interactive is working properly, make sure that lights are working, that kind of thing. For the temporary exhibits, it really depends. The downstairs gallery is very small, and it's best suited to 2D art exhibits. I bring in outside artists most of the time for that, photographs, paintings, collages, that kind of thing. So I work with the artists to get those hung, and then same thing. I'm checking up on things a couple times a week. Make sure nothing has fallen down, make sure everything's in good condition. The upstairs gallery is much larger, and that one plays host to the Gingerbread Gallery once a year, as well as 2 to 3 other temporary exhibits that either I develop or occasionally we have someone from outside, bring in an exhibit. The artist that gave the program for us last month, that her exhibit's up there now, she's a sculptor and an architect. And the exhibit that's up there now is called The Story of Water, and it's an exhibit of ceramics. So when we were open to the public and that was up, same thing, just checking up on things, making sure that sculptures are not being touched by visitors whenever possible. They're pretty sturdy.
Mm.
Um, yeah, dusting is needed. I like to think of an artist trusting me with their work as it's kind of a sacred thing. So I want to return things in the same condition that they were given to me in.
Right. As the manager of collections, you must feel proud when an artist can trust you with a work of theirs.
Yes, it's major, especially someone like her. I mean, she's with the University of Toronto, so that was kind of a big deal. Like, oh, this is an international art exhibit.
Hmm. So that was the last question on my list. Was there any questions that you were hoping I would ask that you would like to answer?
I honestly had no idea what you were going to ask, and when you left the voicemail originally, and Steve, our operations manager, sent me an email about it with your information, I was like, I guess this must pertain to me since you only sent it to me. So I had no idea what you were going to ask.
Well, yeah, I sent it directly to the museum, and
Yeah.
I didn't get an email back yet, so I was like, all right, I'm gonna take this to individual people, and I saw your background and I saw your position at the museum, and I thought she would probably be the best option for this meeting or this interview.
Yeah. Why did you get my voicemail from the other day? Because I called you on Monday.
Did you?
I called you back. Yes, I
Oh,
did.
I didn't seem to get your voicemail. I checked. That's strange, but
Yeah, that's weird. All right, yeah, it's like I called you, I left you a voicemail because Steve. I usually don't work Mondays, but Steve, we've each picked a day to go to the museum to check up on things. My day is Saturday. Well, he's there Mondays, and he emailed me and said, "Oh yeah, this guy called and left a voicemail." So I was like, "All right, I'll call him back." Either
well,
way, I'm glad you got in touch. If you hadn't reached me, I probably anybody would have been able to answer your question. But you know,
hmm
especially since you did have questions about exhibits specifically, maybe
yeah.
I was the best
Well,
person.
I'm glad that I ended up interviewing you. You had a lot of information to give about the museum and your daily activities
Yeah.
within the museum or yearly events.
Yeah. All right. Well, so have you visited? Have you been out to the museum?
My mom and sister have been to the museum. They said it was very interesting, and if I was to pick a museum in the local area, I should choose you guys to interview. So, probably after this
Oh,
is all
okay.
over, I'll probably visit. I'll have to now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we're a nice museum. I may be a little biased.
Well,
But
suppose.
I've been there almost 4 years now. I think it's a great museum. So
Mm, all right. Well, sounds good. Yep. And that's all the
okay.
information that I'm going to need. And thank you so much for this interview.
Yeah, definitely. Good luck with your project.
Thank you so much. You have a nice day.
All right. Yep. Thanks. You too. Bye.
Bye.